If you use a bank account in India, you really need to listen to this. The government just rolled out a brand new procedure that completely changes the game for financial cybercrime. It affects everything, from how you might get your money back if you're a victim to what happens if your account gets frozen by mistake. So, let's break down exactly what these new rules mean for you.
I mean, can you imagine? It's a total nightmare scenario. You're trying to live your life, and suddenly you're locked out of your own money, and you have no idea why. This isn't just some made-up story. It's a real and growing problem for a lot of people, and that's precisely why this new procedure was created, to bring some much-needed order to this chaos, both for the real victims of fraud and for innocent folks who just get caught in the middle.
So why was this change so desperately needed? Well, a few years back, the government put a system in place to quickly freeze money that was stolen in cyber frauds. And, on one hand, it worked. It was actually amazing at stopping the money from just vanishing. But getting that frozen money back into the hands of the people it was stolen from, that's where the system was really failing.
And just look at these numbers. They tell the whole story. The system was able to save over 7,600 crore rupees from being pocketed by fraudsters. That's fantastic, right? But now look at how much of that actually made it back to the victims, a mere 167 crore. That's a success rate of about 2%. Let that sink in. This huge, massive gap is exactly why we needed a new, clearer process.
And here it is. This is the fix. The Ministry of Home Affairs has released this very detailed document, a Standard Operating Procedure, or SOP. Think of it as the new rulebook for everyone involved, the police, the banks, and even for you. It lays out exactly how this whole process is supposed to work, from beginning to end. So let's dive in and see what's inside. All right, here's what we're going to walk through. First, the system that's designed to trap stolen money. Then, what happens step by step when you file a complaint? We'll look at what actually happens when an account is frozen, and, super important, how you can fight back if it happens to you by mistake. And finally, we'll cover the 5 new ways for victims to actually get their money back. Okay, first up, let's get into the system itself. Who are the key players fighting this war on cyber fraud, and what's the main weapon they're using? So the whole effort is being led by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and they've got this special division called the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, which goes by I4C. You can think of them as the central command post for the country's entire response to cybercrime. And this is their main tool, the CFC-FRMS. Now that stands for Citizen Financial Cyber Fraud Reporting and Management System, which is, a bit of a mouthful. Let's just call it the Cybercrime Reporting System. What's crucial to know is that this platform works in real time. The moment a fraud is reported, it instantly connects the police with all the banks involved. This lets them track and freeze the stolen money as it's moving. It's basically a digital first responder for your finances. Okay, so what actually happens when you, as a victim, report a crime? How does your phone call or your online report kick this whole machine into gear? Let's trace that journey. It all starts with you. You either call the 1930 helpline or you file a report online. The local police then do a quick check to make sure it's a real financial fraud, and then they escalate it to that national cybercrime system we just talked about. From there, an alert zips out instantly to the bank where the stolen money ended up. That bank then gets an instruction to put a hold on that specific amount of money. The whole thing happens incredibly fast, all to trap the funds before the thief can move them again.
Now we get to the part that probably makes everyone a little nervous: the account freeze. It's really important to understand that this isn't just one single action. Law enforcement has a few different tools they can use, and they range from a very targeted restriction to a complete seizure of the account.
And the difference between these is absolutely key. Putting an amount on hold is like a surgical strike. It only freezes the exact amount that was reported as stolen. Suspending digital services is a bit broader. It might block your UPI or net banking, but you could probably still go to a physical branch to do a transaction. A full seizure, though, that's the most serious step. It locks down your entire account. And to do that, there usually needs to be a formal police complaint, an FIR, on file. Okay, but what if your account is frozen and you're completely innocent? What if you're a small business owner who just received a payment, or you're somehow connected to the crime without even knowing it? This is where these new rules introduce some really critical protections for people. And I think this quote from the document itself really says it all. It makes it crystal clear that the whole process is supposed to be built on fairness and protecting our fundamental rights. The goal here is to catch the bad guys, not to mess up the lives and livelihoods of innocent people. And to make sure that happens, they've finally put a clear grievance process in place.
So let's look at the clock. If your account gets frozen, you complain to your bank first. The bank then has 7 days to pass your complaint on to the police. The investigating officer gets 15 days to review it. But here's the game changer. If 90 days go by and there are no further legal orders, the bank is allowed to automatically unfreeze the money. This is huge. It prevents accounts from being stuck in limbo forever, which was a massive problem before.
And hey, even if that first investigating officer says no to your grievance, you are not out of options. The SOP sets up a very clear, multi-level appeal system. You can take your case up the chain to a district grievance officer, and if that doesn't work, to a state grievance officer. And of course, at the end of the day, you can always take your case to court.
All right, let's switch gears and go back to the original victim. How does this new SOP actually make it easier for them to get their money back? Well, the document lays out 5 different legal paths to make that happen.
Okay, let's break this down because this is where it can get a little technical. The first 2 processes here, this is the biggest change. They create a brand new, much faster path for victims. In simple, straightforward cases, the investigating officer can now directly tell the bank to return the money, no long court battle needed. This is a massive deal. Now, for the more complicated situations, like if there are a bunch of victims or it's not clear who the money belongs to, the case will still go through the courts to make sure everything is sorted out fairly. But what happens if money from, say, 10 different victims all gets jumbled together in one fraudster's account? The SOP has a clear rule for that, too. Any money that's recovered gets distributed fairly. It's done on what's called a pro rata basis, which is just a fancy way of saying it's proportional. So if your loss was 10% of the total amount stolen in that account, you get 10% of whatever money they managed to get back.
So after all that, what's the big picture here? What are the main ideas driving this complete overhaul of the system?
It really comes down to these 4 things. Proportionality, making sure the action fits the situation so your whole account isn't frozen over a tiny dispute. Transparency, so you always know why something happened and how you can appeal it. Fairness, to protect both the victim who needs justice and the person who might have been wrongly accused. And finally, accountability, to make sure the police and the banks are actually following these new rules and sticking to the timeline.
At the end of the day, this new SOP is a massive attempt to build a system that can act fast to catch criminals, but is also fair to regular citizens. It's trying to fix what was clearly a broken process and hopefully rebuild some trust in the system. The really big question now is whether it can actually strike that very difficult but very essential balance between security and our individual rights. I guess that's something we're all going to find out as these new rules are put to the test.